Welcome back, Boston Rock Talk. We are here with Tim and Eddie from Handsome Ghost, and I think the first place to start is with the name itself. There's a few ghosts out there in the rock and roll world. There's Ghost, the heavy metal band. There's Sean Lennon's band, Ghost of a Saber-Toothed Tiger. And I think there's probably a few more, and you guys are a handsome ghost. Why are you a handsome ghost?
I wish I had a really good story for that, to be honest. There are a bunch of ghost bands out there right now. We, when this band started, in the very beginning, I was doing a lot of the recording myself, and I had some really heavy vocal effects. Mm-hmm. When I first played our very first demos to friends of mine, they were like, "Oh, you sound like a ghost." And I was like, "A handsome ghost," mostly joking. And we just went with it.
I was going to say, setting yourself up as a handsome ghost. You're inviting people to go, "Oh yeah? How handsome are you?"
It's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, but...
Right. And are the other ghosts as handsome as yourself, of course, too? Eddie, is it a handsome band?
I'd say they're pretty handsome.
Pretty handsome band, okay, all right. See. And actually, the format that you guys are in today, obviously, duo, guitar, voice, keyboards, voice, but you have another full band format. Tell me a bit about that, what that sounds like, and...
It varies kind of tour to tour, show to show. Right now it's a 4-piece, but anytime we get the chance to do something a little more stripped down, just guitar and piano, it's a treat. But yeah, the club show is a little louder, just a little more of like a wave of sound.
So what else do we have? Drum, bass, guitar, more guitar? What do you
do? Drums, and then we do 2 keyboards.
Oh, okay.
And we cover the bass on the keys.
Do you play electric too, or do you stay acoustic?
From time to time, more of an acoustic player.
Okay. That's good. Now, you had an EP that came out, what, last year, or was that 2014?
It would have been early 2015.
Okay.
Terrible dates.
It's all right. Four-song EP, right?
6 songs.
6-song EP, fair enough. And that got you some traction, I believe. It got some attention. Lots of Spotify's, et cetera. Tell me a bit about that. Was that sort of a surprise to you, or did you go, "Hey, yeah, this is going to be a good move. We think this is going to help us"?
It was a total surprise, and it was amazing. We had no idea what to expect, which I imagine most bands putting out their first EP probably don't know what to expect.
Right.
But yeah, in the beginning, we saw the Spotify plays for our song Blood Stutter kind of slowly rise, and at first we were like, "This is really, really cool." We were kind of like checking in with each other every day, like, "Oh my, it's at 50,000." And then it just kept going. We were like, "This is really, really cool and lucky."
And you're probably thinking, "I'm earning pennies every day on this, every spin." Okay. Why do you think Blood Stutter stood out, or why do you think that was the emphasis track? Or
I think for whatever reason, people were able to connect to just the overall kind of sonic feel. I think that song is a pretty good representation of our sound, for lack of a better word. And then I like to think that the lyrics kind of hit home and people can relate. I don't actually know. I'm just happy it did.
Tell me a bit about the lyrics. Where is that coming from, and where does it contrast with the music, or how does the music work with it together?
I wrote Blood Stutter with just an acoustic guitar, so it started out very bare. The lyrics are just about looking back on an old relationship, and it just was one of those songs that kind of came together really naturally. Like every part, drums, bass, keys, just seemed to make sense around the song itself, which isn't always the case. So I don't know, I feel like that when it's that easy, when it comes together that naturally, you usually have a good song. That's my hope.
Are you the kind of guy that writes from personal experience, or are you kind of drawing from others' experiences too?
Personal experience 99.9% of the time.
When we hear a Handsome Ghost song, are we saying he went through that?
For the most part.
Probably.
I mean, I've been known to take some creative liberties here and there, but
right.
for the most part, it's pretty true to of my life.
Well, from what I'm hearing, I mean, there's certainly the two strains I hear sort of, there's a melancholia, I think, in some of the songs, and also a certain kind of hope and optimism that balances out. Am I on the right track there? Do you kind of see it that way too?
Perfect.
Perfect.
We're all set. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of who I am as a person. I mean, everyone goes through difficult times, of course. But I don't know, at the end of the day, I like to think that we are, optimists, and we expect the best eventually, even if you kind of have to go through the rough stuff.
Does being a musician, songwriter help you work through that stuff? Is it an outlet to get rid of the angst or whatever? I mean, does it save you from batting your head against the wall?
Absolutely.
Sometimes?
I mean, personally, and you could speak to that, Eddie, but yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, if I'm in a good mood or I just had a great night, a great week, a great month, I don't find myself wanting to sit down and write. I want to, like, go out and be with friends.
Right.
Typically when I'm sitting down to write a song, it's usually because I, like, want to get something out. I imagine it's how people, whatever, if someone likes to go for a long run or write in a diary, I don't know, that's my version of that.
Yeah. Now, do you co-write at all, or are you the sole writer for songs?
To this point, I've done the writing, the lyrics, and the melody. We've started working together a little more closely on that. And then Eddie, handles a lot of the production, runs the live show.
Yeah.
If you want to expound.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, it's just started getting involved with the live set. Initially, that was kind of my role in the group, so I'm just trying to get more involved and get more into the creative process there.
I want to take you back a little bit before this all started. From my understanding, you were a school teacher in the Bronx before you became a professional musician, or a musician who wanted to earn his living by doing that. Tell me about your teaching experience, and did it have anything to do with becoming who you are now?
Yeah, it was, I taught ninth grade for the most part in the Bronx. This was right after college. And I feel like at this point, I've kind of got two chapters in my professional life.
Right.
Chapter one was my teaching experience, and now I've moved on to music. But I mean, it feels like a different world at this point. But it was amazing. I mean, I miss it a lot. There were tough kids from here and there, but some really great kids too. And I would have no problem going back to that life. It was special.
I'm thinking maybe working as a teacher, helps you relate to an audience better. Not that the kids are an audience per se, but you interact with the kids. Does that help you in a sense with interacting with an audience?
I think so. I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's scarier to try to teach 30 kids versus being on stage where you're like a little further removed.
Well, the kids have to be there too, and presumably the audience wants to be there.
That's a great point, yeah.
There is that.
30 kind of like reluctant kids is a little more challenging than people who have come to see you play.
So what about the decision to actually do that? I mean, you are leaving something with, for better or for worse, a paycheck, in moving into something where it's a big question mark, and of course, the world being what it is right now with record sales and streaming and touring and all the rest of it, it's a much more complex picture to earn a living doing what you're doing. What kind of thoughts there about that decision process?
I mean, at least for me, it was a relatively easy decision. Just at a certain point, I feel like you have to just do it. Especially trying to balance teaching with playing. It just got to the point for me where it just wasn't really possible to do both.
Yeah.
Like the amount of preparation that goes into teaching. It was time. So I was like more than willing to deal with the uncertainties and highs and lows. I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more uncertainty.
What were
but
you,
it's-
what were
it's
you doing,
worth it.
Eddie? What was your
I was an engineer, so I did mechanical and human factors engineering.
mechanical engineering? My dad was a mechanical engineer. He taught it for many years. Yeah. I know nothing. I learned nothing. I walked into his class one time. I went to college, the same place he was teaching. I walked in, and he just had all this stuff up on the board, all these numbers and things, and the class was just paying rapt attention. Couldn't understand a word. I just sat in the back of the class. But it was fascinating, and watching his command of it. So anyway, that's my knowledge.
It's a very different world in music for sure.
I was going to say, that's about as far away from mine.
But yeah, it got to the point where I knew I would regret not making that decision.
Right.
And just once you make that type of decision, you always just look forward.
Did Tim lure you in, or okay? Explain the reeling in process.
I mean, as the band started to get a little more serious, and we realized we were going to be able to do this, to tour, to make it a full-time job. I mean, Eddie was the first guy I came to. We've been friends for a long time. And yeah, I mean, I was just like, do you want to do this with me? And I
was
feel
essentially
bad.
like, I already quit my job.
Yeah, I know. He's like, I'm quitting my job. But I mean, I think it's tough. Like, it's easy. It is, if that's all true, and it is easy to say, like, we had to do it.
Yeah.
But there are definitely times on like a 16-hour drive where you're like, man, what was I thinking? And it's definitely kind of an absurd lifestyle.
So I did an interview with Carmine Appice the other day, who is the drummer for Vanilla Fudge and many others over the years. And he's 69, and he was talking to me about work and travel and all the rest of it. And he said, I get paid to travel. When I play, that's fun. It's like, so he kind of counts the money earned is the grueling travel from place to place, and then that hour or 2 hours on stage is like, hey.
That's the good part.
Is that sort of, I mean, you're not at that
well
position
said.
quite yet, but and you're slightly younger than he is, but
That's the best part of the day, is certainly being on stage. And I was actually thinking about it today, because I was in a gas station after filling up the tank, and I was looking at the snack choices.
Yes.
I was like, who would buy this stuff? But then, like, we buy it.
Yeah.
That's who buys it.
You mean the desperation 24-hour, right.
You're like, your brain on tour makes choices that your brain at home would never, ever make. Like, some of the things I've put into my body is just...
For some reason, I eat a lot of corn dogs on tour. It's really disgusting.
I don't support that. I'm not going to take it that far.
Well, actually, that leads sort of jokingly into a serious question I was going to ask, because there was a quote I saw from a story about you saying your songs are sort of positioned between responsible and reckless.
Yeah.
So to switch it into a more serious realm.
Yeah. I mean, that was we're working on a new release right now. And that was kind of the concept behind a lot of the writing. I think at this point I should be probably closer to adulthood. A lot of my friends are at that point. But it's just, this life makes it really challenging to get to that point. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not a kid. But
it's like the Alice Cooper song, I'm 18, I'm a boy and I'm a man.
Yeah.
And you're not 18.
Not
but
18.
Yeah, but you know.
Trying to figure out, like, that balance was
the
impetus behind the new songs.
And tell me about, you've got, the record is called, it's coming up.
Untitled at this point.
It's called Untitled.
Yeah.
I thought there were some wide eyes or something in the title.
Oh, that's our new single, Eyes Wide.
That's Eyes Wide is the single, but not necessarily the album title.
It's not necessarily.
Okay.
TBD.
Okay. How is it coming out? What label, what process are you using to put it out?
It's coming out through Photo Finish Records, who we worked with on our EP.
Where are they based?
They're based in New York. Okay. Great people. We have a lot of faith in them, and hopefully they have a lot of faith in us. But the actual recording process is just about done. There's some, kind of finishing touches to be put on, but, now it's about the nitty-gritty mixing, that kind of the last 10%,
it's always tough, isn't it, to knowing when to stop, right? I mean, unless you have a deadline, unless the studio time has run out or whatever. I mean, I know, going back a ways, the band The Cars, when they were produced by Roy Thomas Baker, I mean, it was just tinker, you know, I mean, how many hours, how many days, months, and years. So, I mean, it's kind of good to have a self-imposed deadline, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think you do run the risk if you just have an endless amount of time of just tinkering a song to death, where it just becomes like a mess. So yeah, I mean, deadlines are good within reason.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and actually, just take you back a little bit too. You did start after you left teaching. I mean, you were a folk music guy, right? Just you and a guitar. Right? What was the thing that clicked in your head that said, "I want more than that. I want more sound"?
I think my music taste just kind of developed. I still love folk music. That's what I kind of grew up on. Not folk necessarily, but that more like singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
But the folk project that I was playing in kind of ran its course in a lot of ways. So I was just kind of taking some time, like deciding whether or not I wanted to return to teaching, go in a different direction, and just started writing some songs by myself with no intention of ever really sharing them. And that's kind of what grew into Handsome Ghost naturally.
Did you have to get to a confidence level of saying, yes, I can do this with other people, not just myself?
Yeah. It was a natural development because this project is almost 3 years old now.
Yeah.
So it started with just me, and then it's just been like a slow developing, adding more people to the team. And it feels like, because it's just been nice and easy, there's been no point where I feel like I've like made any huge shifts or sacrifices.
It's an overused word, but organic.
Yeah, it feels true to the original project.
Right. Let's see. And artisanal and curated, right?
Exactly.
Organic, artisanal, curated. Actually, what's funny, I was looking at, listening to you play and realizing some of the songs you've got. I believe you're the first band on Boston Rock Talk to have blood in at least 2 of the song titles and not be a heavy metal band. I'll be Jerry Seinfeld. What's the deal with all the blood?
Actually, when we play as a full band, it is heavy metal.
Yeah.
No.
Those are not supposed to be particularly dark songs, honestly.
No.
Kind of an accident, I guess. But those are the first 2 songs that we put together that I wrote for this band. And once I figured that out, it just kind of felt like a cool. My thought was that Blood Stutter could be the first song, and Bloodshot could be the last song.
Right.
But it is confusing because people will come up after shows and be like, "I love that Blood song." Which one? But yeah, they're not supposed to be particularly gruesome.
No. Well, they don't. No, gruesome song. Blood. It's life-giving. I mean, it's
a good kind. Yeah.
And actually, you were going to play us out with one of the Bloodshot, I believe. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Bloodshot. We don't honestly get to play Bloodshot as much as I'd like.
Why?
I think, for me at least, it sounds best in this context with Eddie and I. Just the guitar, piano, like kind of true to the song itself. So anytime we get to play it like this, I just like to make it happen. It feels real.
Excellent. Well, very good. Well, Handsome Ghost will be taking us out with Bloodshot. I want to thank you guys for
so much.
coming on today.
Appreciate you having us.
Appreciate it. Good luck with the new album coming out, and undoubtedly the tour to follow, right?
Yeah.
Great. Take care.
Thank you so much.